Hello ladies and gentlemen. So here is example number 2 from 4.3. A security camera is mounted 8 meters above the ground on the outside of a front wall of a building. Police investigators use the camera to determine that the angles of depression to two vehicles parked directly in line with the camera were 23 degrees and 58 degrees. How far apart were the vehicles to the nearest tenth of a meter? Okay, so a security camera is mounted 8 meters above the ground. So, let's make this the ground. Okay. And let's have the camera 8 meters above the ground. Okay. Police investigators use the camera to determine that the angles of depression between two vehicles parked directly in line with the camera are 23 and 58. So it's an angle of depression. So whenever you have an angle of depression, you have to have a horizontal. That's just part of it. So the horizontal for the camera is going to come across here. So this is our horizontal. And the angle of depression are going to come down to the cars that are apparently directly in line with the camera. So we'll come down to our first vehicle. And we'll come down to our second vehicle. So this will be vehicle 1. This will be vehicle 2. Let's call it A, and let's call it B. So vehicle A and vehicle B. Now, a little bit of thought here. One of the angles of depression is 58 degrees, the other one's 23. So one of the angles of depression is larger than the other. So the larger one is the one that's closer to the camera. The smaller one is the one that's farther away from the camera. So this is 23 degrees. And this one in here is 58 degrees. Well, what we also know is I need something to call this, so I'll just call it G for ground. So I have two triangles now. I have CGA, I have CGB, and in fact there's a third triangle, CAB, but it's not a right triangle. And for today, or at least this lesson, we're not dealing with non-right triangles. We do notice that we have an assumption here that we're making this a 90-degree angle. So, what do we have going on now? If I want to, so basically I've taken the question and I've made the diagram, and that's worth marks. And it's not easy. It took some time to go through that. You saw that. There's marks for that. And when they talk about an angle of depression, I need to see these angles outside the triangle. Now those angles will go inside the triangle. We absolutely know that. We know that if we look at a Z pattern here, that this 23 will also go here. And if we look at a larger Z right here, then we know that this will be 58. But I want to see these angles out here for full marks. So there's 2 marks for this diagram. Okay, so what are we looking for? We're looking for how far apart the two vehicles are. So if this is vehicle A and if this is vehicle B, what we're really looking for is this X, or let's call it D for distance. And it's the distance between A and B. I could have called it AB if I wanted to. So to do that, it would really be nice if I knew something about this big triangle. This big triangle, I have an angle, I have a side, and I can calculate a huge side here. But that's more than what I want for D. Looking at the other right triangle, I see I have an angle, I have a side, and I could calculate this amount. Now if I think about it, if I calculate this amount, and if I subtract it from the big amount that I get from working with the larger triangle, then I'm going to get just D. Now I have a strategy. Off to work I go. These questions will require you to think. They're going to require you to problem solve. You're not going to know what to do immediately. That's part of what we're doing here. So take some time, think it through, do all your homework so that you've had practice, and then you'll be able to do a new situation when it arises. So I'm going to start off with in triangle CGB. So the big triangle. And notice I'm telling you what I'm working in, and you need to do the same thing with your audience when you're doing a solution. So I'm going to say that opposite over adjacent. So that's going to be tangent. So I'm going to say that the tangent of 23 degrees is going to equal to 8 over this big distance, GB. I'm going to rearrange that. At this point, you should have had enough practice doing this that I can just do it like this and you'll be okay. If not, practice some more. 8 divided by 23 tan equals, I get 18.8. So GB, oh, hold on, let's make sure I did that right. So 8 divided by 23 tan equals, yes. So GB is approximately equal to 18.8. That's this entire length here. So from here to here is 18.8. So what would really be great if I could figure out this one. If I could figure out this one, then I could subtract that from the 18.8, and that will leave me with the D. So I'm working in another triangle now, in triangle CGA, the smaller triangle of the two. I've got opposite and adjacent, so that's tangent again, but this time it's 58 degrees equals 8 over GA. Again, cross multiply and reduce. So it's GA equals 8 over tan 58. So 8 divided by 58 tangent equals 4.99. Well, that 9 is going to round that 9 up, and it's going to make it 5.0. You need the 0 in there to let people know that you've rounded it to a certain accuracy. Okay, so now, therefore, D equals GB minus GA. So it'll be 18.8 minus 5.0, which will be, I think it's 13, but you know what? It's not worth making a mistake. Yep, 13.8. 13.8 meters. So the two vehicles were 13.8 meters apart from each other. And we did it to the nearest tenth. So that's example 2. You know what? For a word problem, I'm not a big stickler for therefores, but if I can't find, like, really, I need to be able to see the logic. I need to be able to see the flow. I'm fine with this. If you want to put bubble clouds around what you're doing, that's great too, but I need to be able to see this. Now, whether or not you do a nice little final statement, therefore, the cars are approximately 13.8 meters apart. I just spell apart, just one P. I don't really care, as long as I can tell where the conclusion is, and this is what we were moving towards the whole time. Okay, we'll stop that example and we'll go on to the next one.